I see your book.
I'm sure I didn't miss anything.
All right, I'd like to bring the Lisbon Town Council workshop for Tuesday, December 16th, 2014 to order. It is 6:35. We will waive the Pledge of Allegiance until the actual meeting, as long as there's no objection. And just for the record, every councilor is here except Councilor Garrison, who'll be on his way. So we are here tonight for the discussion on the police department upcoming budget. This was an item that Councilor Bickford brought up to the council during council communications a couple months ago. After consulting with the town manager, we have agreed to not put a subcommittee together, as we don't officially have subcommittees, and if that's something we want to look at, we can do so. So we're here tonight as a whole body to have this discussion together. One thing that I just want to make sure that we do is when we go around and we say what we'd like to see happen with the police department budget, we need to make sure that we give this direction to the town manager, and the town manager, as she is our employee, will then take and direct, or delegate the tasks to whoever she wants to, the chief of police or whoever it is, to make sure we work through one person. And it comes back to accountability. And if something doesn't get done, then we're dealing with one person, which is the town manager, and not multiple employees. So this time, I don't know who wants to start. If it's Chief Brooks wants to have anything to say, Councilor Bickford wants to start, or how do you want to go amongst doing this?
Stand up, hold it.
I'll plead the fifth. This goes back a few months when I did approach council and came up with a suggestion that we wanted to have a open discussion like this weeks ahead of the budget process, not like it happened upon all of us last year. It was very difficult last year to communicate and hear things and then being able to respond. This will give us the opportunity to talk about it, think about it, and respond to it down the road. So that's where I am.
Can we start?
Go ahead.
I have two things that I would like to see done, or try to do. We can't make other municipalities jump on board, but I would like to see the comm center expand one town right now, and maybe limited patrol. It seems as though Durham is the one that might be interested. Limited daytime patrol of that. And that's pretty well straightforward. What I would like to see happen. I want a lot of things, but I'd like to see happen.
So basically, you're looking for additional revenue to be brought in. Those are the sources that you could think of how to bring in additional revenue.
Yep.
I just have a question. When you say Durham Patrol, you mean for us to reach out to them to maybe patrol their area?
I know there's a lot of interest over there
Okay.
right now.
Eric?
Okay. I had two things, but Roger already said one of them. Same thing as far as trying to expand it to bring in more revenue. And the other thing is to maybe look at what other towns are paying for their services. Is there any way that we can up our fees? And we don't want to run anybody out, but I mean, is it possible to get any more from them? Are we competitive with our rates, and are we getting what we should be getting?
Good with you?
Yep.
Councilor Lund?
Okay, couple of things, similar lines there. I'd like to know, what other towns are, or what other dispatch centers are charging, so that if we, at some point in the future, decided to look to that as an option to moving our dispatch somewhere else, what would we have to pay for that, so we'd know, what is the baseline, and we could see in comparison to that and our revenue to see what the gap is in between there, you know, are we paying 20,000 or 30,000 a year extra, or, you know, what do we have to cover to make it profitable compared to what we'd have to pay if we, you know, shifted to some other dispatch center to cover the cost there. And also, I'd like to know the, on our fleet of vehicles, I'd like to know, you know, is it possible to have a smaller fleet of vehicles than we have right now? Do we really need every single car? Can we have a list and a justification of how we're using those cars? Like, for instance, the cars that are parked at the elementary schools or the SROs, I know it's for them to be able to respond, but how often have we had situations where they've had to respond on call and use those cars? Or, you know, would it be possible to have one of the SROs have a car and the other one, you know, have to come here and pick up a car if they needed to go somewhere as an emergency? I'd like to know the numbers on how often they are actually responding from those situations and whether we're leaving cars parked there unnecessarily.
Councilor Crafts?
Pretty much covered.
Okay. Councilor Brunel?
Dave's been doing his job a lot longer than I've been sitting up here. I'm sure he's doing all he can to get whatever you ask done. Got nothing really to say beyond that.
Okay. Steve Roger? You didn't need more than a half hour.
I got one more thing.
You're gonna make it drag out.
I only got one more question. I wanna elaborate on Mr. Lunt's question. I think if you do look at going to another community, if we look at another communication or changing to another communication, I would like to make sure that you include every little tidbit, like the dispatch for the school, the dispatch for the public works, dispatch for all that we provide at no, you know, really no charge. We do this for the school and for the public works, I believe, for nothing. How much would it cost if we completely eliminated dispatch? What would it cost for the cost of town to go to dispatch? Have everything dispatched.
I'd be curious how other towns have done it, like, you know, Topstone, where they gave up their dispatch center, but they obviously still have someone dispatching their schools and plow trucks.
So you have to pay.
Right, that paid for something, yeah, you wanna figure that into the equation there. I'd like to know what they did.
Puzzle, do you have a question?
Pardon?
Do you want clarification on something?
Well, some of your questions I can answer now, but I don't know if it's up to me to answer.
Okay, I'll just give my 2 cents for all it's worth. This is a hard meeting for me to wrap my head around because I like to look at numbers, and unfortunately, we're not in a position with the budget yet where we can look at numbers. It's still really early for that to happen. It's not something I would expect Diane to have done now because that's not realistic. But looking outward, I agree that we need to look for additional revenue through the comm center or through additional patrol. And I agree with Councilor Lunt where we should get a proposal from other PSAP agencies to see how much it would cost for dispatching. When I am in Food City picking up a gallon of milk and somebody stops me and asks why we have the dispatch center, I can justify it, or I can try to justify it, but I find that you, as a counselor, you can't really connect with somebody talking about taxes and why taxes go up and what services they're paying for without a dollar figure. So I would like to see different agents, different PSAP centers, how much it would cost, figure out is Lisbon would save money by consolidating somewhere, would we lose money, or would it cost us more, including the revenue that we get from other communities? That's a question that has been, we haven't been able to answer, or at least I as a counselor haven't gotten the information for 2 years, and I would like to get that information this year. Either maybe we'll find that we're getting the best that we can, and the comm center is the best thing for Lisbon. It generates revenue. It only costs $20,000 additional to consolidate somewhere, or maybe we'd find we save $200,000. I have no idea. The numbers are very vague for me. Greg, we're finishing right now with the workshop. You'll be the last one to go. We just went around the horn and gave our 2 cents on where we'd like to see Diane and the Chief of Police focus for the upcoming budget, and what we'd like to see done with the department.
Again, our concerns are an increase in budget would definitely not be a good thing. And that's about as far as I'll go at the moment. But my biggest thing is the, what is it, the document scanner you've been asking for on and off. I know you guys have a lot of paper that's taking up a lot of space. I'd like to look at that. I know it's expensive, but pretty soon we're gonna run out of storage space, to my knowledge, so might want to consider that.
SimQuest is looking at that now.
Okay. That was
If
my
I get the
concern.
opportunity to go around the horn here,
Sure.
on the SRO cruisers, you put a marked cruiser in front of a school, that's a deterrent. That the primary reason for a marked cruiser in front of a school when there's an SRO there. You do not take a marked cruiser away from the school that has an SRO in it. You go all over the state, you go all over the country, and you will likely find SROs that are in schools have marked cruisers in front of those schools. That's the purpose of that marked cruiser being there. It tells whoever has an idea that they may want to do something, that there's likely a uniformed police officer someplace in that building. Bring you all up on the revenue piece. I don't even know how many of you are aware of the fact that we are now receiving just over $105,000 in revenue, both communications and ACO combined. That's $105,000 more than we were receiving 2 years ago. So just a reminder that we are collecting revenue. We are going into the third year of our communications contracts. So I think some of these things you're talking about, as far as us looking elsewhere, this isn't the right year to do it. We can start doing some research on it, but we're not in the contract years to do that yet because we still have binding contracts with three communities. And I guess what's troubling to me if the town of Lisbon is taking that approach, which they didn't take 2 years ago, then those other three communities that we have with us right now may decide to start looking elsewhere too. So you make our bargaining chip weaker by doing this. Yet I heard someone, I think it was Mr. Mativier, wanted to know, or yeah, it was, check the rates. If we're doing it one way, we can't do it the other way. We can't do it all at the same time. So we need to get some, I think, firmer guidance on how we want to deal with this. We can't talk about packing the bags and in the same negotiations raise the rates. It's going to be very difficult. I think you all understand that. So as far as the comm center expansion, we are communicating with another town in the county at this time. That's not anything that I'm bringing forward yet because it's in the infant stages. When it gets to the point where their administrator and our manager has to discuss things, then Diana will be brought into it. But right now, it's amongst the services being talked about, lobbying. And also, the other part of that Roger brought up, that's also, matter of fact, this is going to be discussed this week, so I'm already a step ahead on that. And yes, Durham did approach me 2 years ago, unofficially. However, that those folks over there are gone now, so I don't know exactly what Roger apparently has a better handle on it than I, what the feeling is over there, but some of the folks at that time were extremely interested, and they wanted to form a public safety committee and approach that avenue for daytime coverage. So this is not anything new to them either, so we'll just open that door again. Other than that, we will deal with budget increases as we have to. We can't help it if it's a 53rd week in the pay cycle this year, which adds another week to payroll. So that's a problem. The communications budget is off my desk and on Diane's desk. I have to have that done early because of the two towns that we have that are on calendar budgets. Their budgets begin January 1st. So just a very quick heads up, that budget originally came in at 1.6% increase, which was based on the contractual pay raises and step increase and other reductions in the budget, brought to 1.6 until that 53rd week was added. 53rd week brought it up to 3.2. Just that 1 week. So again, that's on Diane's desk, and then we have to meet with the other towns to move forward on that. This is, I believe, the 3rd year of their contracts. Starting July 1.
I do understand the piece of the contracts in the comm center, and we're in year number 2. We're in year number 2, right? For the,
I'm sorry?
The contracts with the dispatcher were in year number 2.
We are in year number 2 right now.
Okay.
Yes.
I, as a counselor, would like to, for Diane and you to look at, maybe not getting an official quote from PSAP agencies, but I would like to know, so I can answer the public as to what it would cost for us to do the business elsewhere, with that including the loss in revenue that would do to our revenue stream. And if for some reason the town did decide not to go forward with the dispatch in Lisbon anymore, would there be a buyout period that would have to do with the contracts that are in place right now and how that situation would play out? Anybody have anything else that you want to add? I think this is a good idea that we had this tonight. I do believe that more of these will be happening with the department heads to have this open dialogue back and forth. It was good, so you're not surprised come April that you get these questions asked to do some homework, that we're doing this beforehand. If there's no other questions for Chief Brooks or for Diane, I'll close the public hearing if I don't see anything, or not the public hearing, but the workshop. All right. Thank you.
And then we'll talk, you look at.
G-Slack. Good.
I'd like to bring the Lisbon Town Council meeting for Tuesday, December 16th, 2014 at 7 p.m. to order. We did already do our agenda for the workshop, and now we'll move into our regular council meeting, and we'll start with the pledge. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. First item, please.
Please roll call. Counselor Garrison?
Present.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor McTeviot?
Here.
Counselor Bickford?
Yeah.
Counselor Crafts?
Here.
Counselor Pesky?
Here.
Counselor Brunel?
Here.
Next item, please.
Presented good news and recognition, the Lisbon High School Field Hockey Proclamation.
We come before you tonight to recognize the Lisbon Field Hockey Team for their wonderful work this past year. So thank you all for coming out. It's wonderful to see you all here. The Town Council has all signed a proclamation, which I'll read, and it'll be handed off to your coach. Town of Lisbon Proclamation. Whereas the Lisbon High School Field Hockey Team have made the community proud as they claimed the Mount Valley Conference NBC Championship title, and whereas the Lisbon High School Field Hockey Team played against Oak Hill for the MVC title, Lisbon's only 2 losses during the regular season were Oak Hill, and whereas the Lisbon High School field hockey team prevailed over Oak Hill 2-1 in triple overtime. And whereas the Lisbon High School field hockey team went on to compete in the Class C state championship at Thomas College on November 1st, 2014, and finished as runner-up. And whereas 3 players, Allison Bubar, Ariana Kaler, and Molly Nickerson, from the Lisbon High School field hockey team, went to represent Lisbon playing for the Maine field hockey all-state team. Now, therefore, we, as a town council in the town of Lisbon, wish to congratulate and thank Lisbon High School field hockey team for their fine representation of the town of Lisbon while winning the Mount Valley Conference title on October 30th, 2014, and at Scarborough High School in the state championship on November 1st, 2014 at Thomas College. If you guys want to come up as a team for a picture, we can give the plaque to your coach. It doesn't stand up right here. You guys have anybody? Nobody brought a camera.
I brought my camera.
We don't have it.
Plugging right in.
No, not everybody.
Well, that's what the Africa.
No, I'll give it to you and I'll give this to them. You want?
Oh, everybody, yeah, but I'm gonna get a picture.
Okay.
Bring it to them.
I'll give this to the 2 coaches and then you guys have
Okay, great.
the proclamations and the town council also.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen.
The lines were all fed when we went through there, all this. Whatever.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they'd already been fed before we went through. Good thing too, because it was all pretty open. Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's fine. I think the public can see the speaker too. Doesn't matter.
Works for me. I like it that way. That way when somebody's up there, I can. And if you get really bad, I can smack you in the back of the head. Yes, I would. Make those comments.
I'm gonna just switch up.
You do 1, 2, and
I'm waiting for Larry to get up there. I got it. Dylan, you take all the fun out of it.
Part of the pay raise.
Ah, there you go. That big money.
All right, we'll go ahead and continue with our meeting. And next item, please.
It is under good news and recognition. I believe Ross Cunningham would like to say a few words about Very Very Main Street.
Yep. Good evening, how are you this evening? I'd like to take an opportunity to fill you in on Very Merry Main Street, which happened on December 6th downtown in the Falls. We had a wonderful evening planned and Mother Nature came right along and fixed it for us. I want to first of all thank all the volunteers. I'd like to list them if that's all right. John Wiersbicky, Sharon Zilla, Fern LaRochelle, Ron Partridge, Cheryl Haggerty, Pastor John, and the Lisbon Falls Baptist Church singers who come out every year. Roger Roy was our Santa. And then when we came upon the problems of the weather, we had to cancel our horse and wagon, and we had to cancel some outdoor entertainers. It sort of became evident that I was going to need some more help, and we were going to need the fire department to bring Santa up, and we were going to need the rec department to give us a bus, and we were going to need a driver. So I really wanted to take a minute, first of all, to thank Councilman Bickford for stepping up and being our driver, driving the bus around all evening. But the town support we got when things got cloudy and rainy on us was just phenomenal. Public Works came out and sanded all the sidewalks, nobody would slip and fall. Fire department brought Santa up. The rec department gave us a bus without blinking for us to use. Really just a great community evening. I want to tell you that normally we have about 150 people out there. Even in the rain, we had over 100. So we had 23 businesses involved this year. Each business on average about 60 people coming to their door. And we spent the evening sort of prompting these businesses to hand out coupons or something to bring them back. So really was a great evening. One of the best things I heard the evening was collecting the coupons at the end of the night. Was folks who were saying, hey, this really has become a family tradition for us to come down and do this every year. I think this was our 6th year, maybe our 5th, I can't be sure. We've been doing it for so long. So I just wanted to thank you guys and thank the town for its support. Both the police department was all lined up to escort our parade, but we got it rained out. But the other folks who definitely stepped up when it mattered, and I wanted to thank you for that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Is there any other good news and recognition that council would like to share? On that side, I'll sit over here. All right, and the next item, please.
Is for a public hearing for slum and blight designation.
I would open the public hearing for the slum and blight designation. If anybody has anything that they would like to say about it. See none? No?
You want me to? Nope.
Nope.
Anything more else?
I'm good. Next item, please.
Is the vitriol's license for Bustagat Cafe. Public hearing.
I'll open the public hearing. Close public hearing. Next item, please.
Is a public hearing for the special entertainment permit for the Coombs Mountain Fruit Post 158 and the Slovak Catholic Association.
I'll open the public hearing. Close public hearing. And the next item, please.
Is for audience participation.
I'll open audience participation for agenda items only. See none? Next item, please.
I would take it there's no audience participation response. We'll move to the consent agenda. Order 2014-267 to approve the minutes of December the 2nd, 2014, a victualer's license for Bustagat Cafe and a special entertainment permit and a liquor license for the Coombs Mountain Post and the Slovak Catholic Association.
I'll open the floor for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? See none? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
And Twyla will be moving the agenda around just a slight bit. We are going to ask Ms. Malloy to give us her presentation on the capital improvement program and also the financial report, so she can leave early tonight.
I'd like to thank you for making the accommodation.
You're welcome.
So before you have the capital improvement program. And capital improvement program is any construction project that exceeds $10,000 and or any equipment purchase that's to be bonded or budgeted over over more than a 1-year fiscal period. And we typically look at it over a 5-year span. So you'll see a 5-year projection of what those needs are for the town of Lisbon. So before you have a brief letter from the town manager explaining the capital program and what needs to be submitted, as well as some informational pages on what a capital improvement policy is and methods to finance it, so that when you get to the summary sheets, you can refer back and see what these financing methods are. So the sheets I'd like to take you through begin with page 5, 6, 7, and 8, I believe. This takes you through where we currently stand and where we would like to go. The page 5 is currently what we have funded in the capital improvement plan. And you can see that the total of what we have funded to date is for 2016 is $762,421. That includes all our bonds. That's not just what comes out of the general operating fund. It's what we have bonded. It includes the water department. It includes the new bonds that just passed. So this is currently what we have funded and are obligated to in the 2016 year through the 2020 year. Okay. Page 6 is what is unfunded but is being requested by the department heads or the town as a whole. And some of the items we're looking at to take you down through the list for the 2016 year is the town clerk's office would like to pursue the option of updating the election booths. And that would come out of the town operating budget, or is proposed to come out of the town operating budget, to the tune of $12,814. The truck replacement program with the fire department would be looking to expend around $85,000 out of their capital reserve to take care of truck 6, engine 1, and the, I believe it's the command vehicle. So, and these are projections of what we anticipate will be coming out of the capital reserve fund. They're not final dollars. It's just what we anticipate. It could be less. It might be a little more. It might be a different vehicle. This is just, again, a projection of what we anticipate expending through in this case, the reserve program. We would also be asking through the operating budget, when it comes time to the budget discussions that we have in operations, to increase the capital reserve by $20,000 for this program. Under Public Works, we would be looking to add $40,000 in for paving. We would also be looking to match the paving from Frost Hill to Capitol Ave to the tune of $70,000, which again is a match. We would be receiving from federal or state funds $280,000 for that paving project. And we would also be looking out of the operating budget to fund for a grader, excavator, and to continue to build the reserve program under Public Works for $4,500. The Parks Department would be looking to start establishing a reserve to the tune of $10,000 to build the Park Road, as well as to consider a playground structure at Beaver Park for $15,000. In addition to that, we would also be looking to update the playground structure at MTM for $12,000. The police department would be looking to replace the ACO truck out of the operating budget, as well as the cruisers, MDTs, the mobile radios, and part of a document imaging unit, which the copier portion was bought this past year. Now we need the imaging component. We would also be looking to build a reserve of $11,000 for the police department as well. And under solid waste, we would be looking for both a dump trailer and a trash trailer to begin lease purchase options under the operating budget for those, totaling $15,000. So the total unfunded impact is $615,000. Although keep in mind that that is not all operating budget expense. Okay, part of that, if you look on page 8, that kind of breaks down both the funded and the unfunded portion of where those commitments come from. And as you can see from a total funded and unfunded standpoint, 28% of what we're requesting is what would come out of the operating budget. So only $398,000 is coming out of the current operating budget. The town bond issue totals just over 9% at $132,000. We would be looking to receive around 20% of this from federal or state funds of $280,000. The school bond issue totals around 32%, which is $438,000. The water bond is at 2% at only $32,000, and out of our capital reserve plan would be 7% at $96,000. So the total plan for 2016 is looking at $1,378,085. I know that's a lot of information and a lot of numbers, but the main component to take away is that, again, that this is not all looking to be budgeted and to come out of the current operating budget. We do have some reserves built, we have matching funds that we're looking at, so it's important to look at the makeup of the request. And that's what I have on the capital plan, unless you have questions for me.
I'd open questions up for council.
I have a question, Jessica, do you have the historical information on, say, like the last 5 years, what we've spent each year as a total for capital improvements? You probably have it right on you.
I don't have it right on me, but it's something I could look
Yeah, I'd like
to
just have the
compile and
totals of,
provide.
year to year to see,
Yep.
are we spending the right amount of money, where we should be, and what's the percentage of our operating budget that's going to capital improvements?
Yep, I can do that.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Any other questions on this side? Anything over here? I appreciate you taking time to put this together, Jessica. I always recognize it, as I told you, as kind of a wish list. Sometimes stuff we have to buy, sometimes we don't, and that's why we have a long, lengthy budget process.
Absolutely.
But this is really good information to have going into that, kind of know what's coming up, and have the supporting documentation. So we'll definitely go forward from here, and then it will go to the planning board for their review and approval as well.
Yep,
All right,
thank you.
and now we'll move on to,
So you're gonna vote on adopting this capital improvement plan?
we could do it now or at the actual place in the
Okay,
agenda.
all
I
right.
just figured we could get Jessica's
Sure.
in and out.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay.
All right.
So I have a really brief finance report for the month of November. It's been pretty quiet. To summarize revenues for you, November brought in $170,576. State revenue sharing brought in $51,000, which is slightly higher than last year for November at $42,000. Year to date, however, we are $33,000 less than we were last year at this point in time. And again, as I mentioned in months past, this variance seems to stem from the reduced sharing that we received in July of 2014. Our 5-year average collection rate with state revenue sharing at this point in the fiscal year is 40.77%, whereas for November 2014, we are only at 38.8%. So keep in mind that these values are compared to our already reduced budget of $520,000, whereas years past we were $570,000. Or last year we were $570,000. Excise tax is 42.2% collected, with $540,000 year to date, compared to prior year at only $507,000. Our 5-year average collection rate at this point in the fiscal year is 40.7%, so we're slightly above our average collection rate, which is refreshing to see. So that'll be something we look to be above budget on by the end of the year. And that's what I have for revenues, unless you have a question for me.
Do you have any questions?
Status in Durham for animal control?
They've been billed and will be looking for payment.
So they don't pay quarterly, they semi-annually?
I believe if I remember, a payment was overlooked, but we should be receiving it. Yeah, so we're working on the collection.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for council before we move on?
Okay, moving on to the expenses. I really just have for you that the total expenditures for the month of October was kind of funny, $498,498. There are no major items of interest for this month, just our standard operating expenses. Everything seems to be right in line with our projections. And that's really all I have for you, unless you have a specific question for me.
Any questions from council? Great, and
Thank
I
you so
wish
much.
you feel better.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-268, the Slum and Blight Area Designation.
Before us in our council, we have the packet from the Slum and Blight area designation. This is the same thing that we had last council meeting. For any discussion that council has, we also have Tracy here and Amanda if we have any questions. All set?
I think we discussed pretty well last time.
Yes.
Set? So I would entertain a motion. Or Okay, so your motion is to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-269 to award the natural gas bid.
We didn't receive any bids. We sent out bid specs and no, they declined to bid on the natural gas. So what Ryan and I need to do is we need to go on the PUC website and look at the rates and try to figure out what we're going to do. So I guess at this point, my recommendation would be to authorize me to negotiate the best deal for the town since we didn't receive any bids.
Why?
So what we're due today, and was Ryan outside?
Do you know why we wouldn't have got any
He
bids?
talked to them, so hopefully he'll come here so he can answer that.
It's fluctuating too much, they
I-
don't lock themselves in.
Exactly, that's what I think. Ryan, the question is why the natural gas companies didn't bid on our natural gas.
Yeah, there were, I was in contact with a couple of them today. One just said that they chose not to bid, one does not supply natural gas to the state of Maine. Unitil said that basically they don't bid on these because they're regulated by the PUC, I guess, and so their rates are available for us to just view online. And I never did hear back from Sprague Energy, who was our current provider, so I'm not sure why they didn't bid, other than they were a current customer or whatnot. I couldn't tell you as far as that's concerned.
Thank you. So, if we didn't get any bids the first time, you want us to give you approval to negotiate. Who do you plan on negotiating with?
We're gonna look at the state website, and Unitel is one, obviously, and then like Ryan just said, Sprague is the one we currently have a contract with. It was under a different name, and it was purchased, Metro Media, now it's Sprague. And see what else is out there on the website. Honestly, really don't know at this point since they wouldn't bid on it, but we need, the Metro Media or Sprague contract expires at the end of the month. I mean, we can continue on with them, but I don't know that that's the best deal, and we need to look around, I guess, and determine whether that is. Maybe Unitel would be better for us, but I'd like you to authorize permission for me to enter into a contract based on whatever the best deal is that we can find for the town at this point.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion, have the town manager look for the best buy for the gas.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Any concerns?
I'd just like to make sure that we're notified afterward of whatever price you get.
Yes,
and,
yes, we'll let you know.
See nothing else? All those in favor of the motion?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, please.
Order 2014-270 unnamed stream watershed management plan proposal.
Diane?
Ryan's gonna do that for you.
Okay.
As part of the sewer department budget, we did budget to do a supplemental environmental project that we were required to do as part of the sewer consent agreement that we had between the DEP and the state. This is one of the projects that we included in our package when we went out for a master services agreement for engineering and technical assistance. And Elvers Associates put together a proposal that I believe is in your packet, basically laying out what they intend to do for a scope, as well as their fee of $30,000, which is what we anticipated the project to be. They did say that some of the testing could be more or less depending on what we actually do for sampling, and then in further discussions, they've indicated that they may not even recommend that we do any sampling at all, just because just by studying the watershed area, we may be able to identify where some of the larger areas where contaminants may be getting into the stream. We can address those areas without really doing sampling. So the goal at this point is just to get under contract with them so we can get started on the project. We can continue to update the DEP as we go forward and get this done by the end of June, which was what we were required to do.
Is there any question? Are there any questions from council? I had one question. Part of the DEP consent agreement was to do this, as you mentioned. After we do this study, is for it, Will we have to spend any more money on any sort of manpower work to be done? Do you know?
I think a majority of what's anticipated to come from this is we can try to find out where a majority of the pollutants are coming that are causing the problems with the stream, and more than likely then deal with the property owners that are adjacent to that, either call them their attention to what, you know, the potential issue may be. I can't really say upfront if there's gonna be any actual permanent structures that we'd have to install or any sort of treatment devices at this point without going through and kind of trying to figure out. It may just be a matter of people leaving their lawns a little higher, or, you know, those kind of areas, creating a vegetated buffer between the stream and wherever the problems are until we really identify the problems. It's hard to say what those solutions are. I mean, there's a potential that there could be some additional costs. That's something that we can control based on, you know, what the recommendations are from Oliver.
Great, thank you, Ryan. This time I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the unnamed stream watershed management plan proposal.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Motion passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-271, the sewer system evaluation study.
Again, as part of the sewer department budget, we had carried forward funds to do a comprehensive sewer system evaluation and asset management program development. It's been since the mid to early 90s, early 2000s that we had done kind of our last overall sewer system evaluation, and that led to a lot of the major projects that we've done over the last 10, 12 years. And based on the consent agreement issues that we went through and the input that we received from DEP through that process, we've done a lot of really good work with the pump stations and the treatment plant itself, and we've kind of kept up with the sewer mains when we've had issues, but we haven't done a full-fledged sewer system evaluation of the 35 miles of sewer pipe that we have. So this is the start in that direction, and Oliver presented a scope and budget of approximately $55,000 for us to get started on that project. They'll be able to provide us with recommendations and whatnot, and we may have to spend some additional money for camera and work and whatnot, which would be outside the scope of this proposal. But I feel like we can stay within the $120,000 budget that we have for this, and then have a really good product at the end that we can bring to you for when we develop our budget each year and what items that we need to address on an annual basis.
Are there any questions from council for Ryan?
Would this be out of the sewer budget?
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why number 8 is separated? That's the testing, smoke.
Yes,
or
because that
whatever.
would be from an outside source, it would be a Ted Bailey.
Somebody other than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's where we may get into additional costs above the $55,000, but that would be, Ted Berry's the only company that we've been using for camera work in the last 5-6 years.
Any questions over here? I'm excited to see that the study came in lower than budget by a long shot. That's awesome to see. You mentioned extra costs might come through this study that would take out of that budget, but the leftover funds, is there a plan for that money?
At this point, the goal would be to reinvest it into whatever the recommendations are. There's still the asset management component that's kind of an unknown as to what direction we'd like to head with that, and I think that once we've got some input from the contractor on the system and moving forward, I think that we'll know if we need to spend that money towards that aspect of the plan.
Great, thank you. This time I would open the floor for a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-272, to set up a trust fund and accept donations for the maintenance of Blake Cemetery.
We currently have, we're holding on to some money from Gareth Amboise. Back when he did the revitalization of the Blake Cemetery, he went around and got donations to do that work, and he had funds left over, and what he wants to do is donate the remaining funds which is a little bit less than $400, to go into the maintenance of the Blake Cemetery. So what we need to do is develop a reserve, set up a reserve account, and get authorization to accept donations to go into that account for the maintenance of the Blake Cemetery.
And I did ask Diane about, we accepted a cemetery in the past with some funds attached to it. This would be its own separate account. We need to have a separate account for financial means of accountability. So in case anybody had that question. Are there any other questions from council for Diane? I'd entertain a motion.
Make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-273, school capital reserve request.
Okay, in our packets, we have a memo from Superintendent Green regarding the capital reserve request. I believe Councilor Lunt did email Rick Green Superintendent Green for some questions, and he's at the podium. Good evening, Mr. Green.
Good evening. This evening, this is the first time that we formally come in, or have been required to come in front of the town council. As you know, we usually build our budget using our capital reserve. However, we do have some things that have come up over the course of this year. This is one particular item, and what we're asking for is to be able to, the school committee, as you know, voted 5-0 to request the authorization from you to utilize an amount not to exceed $42,000 from our capital reserve fund to pay for the installation of an upgraded wireless system at the Lisbon Community School. This was actually going to be budgeted for next year. I know Mr. Lund had asked me about that. However, we have, with the Smarter Balance testing that's coming up in the spring, we are going to have to update our laptop computers and the wireless network. Even though it's only 10 years old, the capacity of that network 10 years ago was not, it wasn't intended for all the wireless devices that we currently have in the school system. And so tonight we're asking for use of those funds to help pay for that now and prepare us for our testing in the spring. And I have some technical, the different types of networks and how they've changed over the last 10 years, if anybody's interested. But again, it's just, ultimately it's because the system, even though that's our newest building, the wireless network that was put in 10 years ago doesn't have the capacity to handle all everything we have now is wireless, and 10 years ago a lot of stuff, there's still the Cat 5 jacks that are still in the walls. Now everything's wireless, so the network, that's how, we do have some issues using that network currently. This will address that. This is actually the lowest. We contacted multiple vendors. We only received a couple of quotes back, and this one was the lowest. This probably will be the lowest, but we're only asking to expend up to this amount. This company is actually part of the main laptop initiative, and so I think that's why we're getting a better deal. They want to have the HPs in the elementary school.
Are there any questions for Superintendent Green?
Mr. Green, when did you first come upon this problem?
He's been talking about it for a while. He presented during his business meetings and stuff, and in his reports he's mentioned that this has been the plan to replace it next year. However, the new wireless for the testing, Smarter Balance, just happened about 2 weeks ago. They gave us a checklist, and we're supposed to go through and test all of our equipment to make sure that it's compatible with the testing. And a lot of the laptops that we currently have meet the minimum requirements, and that's another piece. But we can't use a capital reserve to pay for equipment like that. It has to be some type of upgrade to the system. So this is actually why we created this account in 2010. But just the testing, we just found out about the technology requirements just a few weeks ago.
A couple of years ago, I was approached by some teachers, and they were saying they were having problems, very serious problems, 2 years ago.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I had mentioned it to Mr. LaRochelle, talking with him, and I just can't see why you didn't address it sooner.
Well, we didn't have the money. We really didn't have $42,000, and our capital reserve this year, as you know, it looks, we had, I think, in the audit, there was like 180,000 in undesignated funds this year. So that's why we actually have the money now versus last year when we budgeted for it. We replaced all the laptops, teacher laptops and stuff, which were on our schedule this year, which actually puts a strain on the wireless because now they're all wireless computers. But it's in the plan. It's just a matter of not having the funding to move forward with it. This is, I mean, we created this account. There's actually a couple other things I just wanted to throw out there for you when you're done. For use of this account that we're probably going to need to address just because of the construction and also because of the attorney fees for the funding for the bonds and the guaranteed performance plan. But I'll answer the question on this. We've had it on our radar. We just haven't. The high school is another building that needs to have the wireless network upgraded too. But we think we can get by because they only have the 11th grade will be the ones tested, not the entire school, like the elementary school.
Are there any other questions from council?
Did you have the technical specs you're talking about there? Take a look at it if you have something.
Yep. I have the email or the Word document they sent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I mean, I need to see it.
Oh, you didn't see it?
Yeah.
I emailed it.
Okay, I didn't check it in.
Okay.
I sent it right after you sent it.
Okay, sorry.
I also just want to address the urgency for it. We all knew Smarter Balance testing would be coming. They never really gave us a date. It was one of those state changes, moving over from kneecaps to this. And when you have devices that periodically access the wireless network, like that are currently going on in the elementary school for a lesson here, a lesson there, this will be these will be week-long tests that will be accessed by many. So that's the urgency of the network now, as opposed to the bleep and intermittent issues with the wireless network in previous years. So that's why we just, like Mr. Green said, just got the specs, which is typical from getting that type of thing that, hey, it's happening in a few months, but here you have to have this in place.
Any other questions from council? Anything over here? Anything over here? I do have 2 questions. Do you have a copy of the bids?
Just the quotes. I have the copy of, I think I enclosed the copy of the lowest quote. There's no bids. It was all, we went out for quotes on that. Or estimates on that.
I see a memo here, but I don't see anything else with it that talks about the quote. I see it's $16,000 less than any proposals received so far.
Yeah, there should have been
I opened your email that you sent as well, and I didn't see it there.
Yeah, I'll have to check because I thought that you should have received a copy of the actual, because there's 2 parts to it. There's 2 parts to the paper. One is there's like a $6,000, $6,600 like installation or whatever, and then there's the equipment piece is the other part, and it totals around $42,000.
I'm gonna just briefly, if council does have an objection, find Mr. Green's email. He's looking for it.
Yeah, I thought I sent all of that to the, I don't know if I sent it to the councilors. I know I sent it to the town manager's office, but I don't recall if that was attached or if Kathy sent it or if it was me.
So what was the reason why you didn't put in the budget last year?
We had other priorities in front of it. We had technology priorities. There's a cycle. You'd have to talk to Mr. Churchill, but he focused on the laptop turnover, or staff laptops last year. His budget's only 30-something thousand, or I believe it's 30-something. This would take up pretty much his entire budget. So he prioritized getting the equipment first, knowing that the system was working, but it wasn't working well, as was already pointed out. But again, it's just a matter of prioritizing needs, kind of like your capital plan that you heard this evening. You're going to have to prioritize what you buy.
I just found the email, and the only attachment here is the capital reserve memo. There's nothing else here.
Yeah,
So
maybe it could have been that I just gave it to the when I presented to the school committee, but I know that I had emails with the 2 attachments on it. I don't.
Okay.
Probably find them easily enough.
And my other question I had, I've been stewing over this all weekend, trying to justify it in my head. I know that Miss Austin mentioned that a couple of weeks ago you guys got your checklists. But when did the school department get heads up that this switchover was happening for this type of testing?
2 weeks ago, when they had the preliminary webinars for all the school systems to come in, and then during those webinars, they notified us that, oh, here's a checklist that you need to give to your technology people, and make sure that it was probably 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. So we had no idea what the requirements were gonna be. We knew it was gonna be online, but we didn't know if there was gonna be any issues. And when we look at the requirements that they had and we test our system, it just makes sense if this is something that we could do now and then be proactive and have it fixed. Consider it's gonna be in the budget next year, or was planned on being in the budget next year. If we have the capital reserve, we would use the capital reserve to pay for it for next year so that we're not asking for new money in our budget. So, I mean, that's,
Great, thank you.
yep.
Dylan,
Yep.
according to the Smarter Balance website, they just voted on it the 18th of November. That's when they approved the final tests.
Seems like there's gonna be a lot of other schools caught in the same
They're
kind of
gonna be
bucket.
scrambling.
Some people may not have the funds.
I haven't been to a regional superintendent's meeting yet, but I know that that's probably
See a
something.
lot of
They'll
difference
probably be
having no
thrilled.
money to upgrade.
We could probably, I could probably come to you next month and ask to do the high school, but I think we can get by with that. I'm more focused on getting the laptops, and I can't use this for laptops.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I, seeing personally, have a hard time with this item. I think it should go through regular budget process, and I can't justify it in my head of why I would vote in favor of this. I think it needs to go through the process, just like any other item does. I understand that this is an impact on testing. I'm not sure if there's any other means to switch this around, or if there's any means to make it work better, less kids on doing a testing at a time. In addition to going through the original or budget process, I think that that capital reserve money needs to be used this year to help reduce the budget, offset the budget, as we're all going to be going into a difficult time. So I personally will be voting no on this item, as I want to see it go through regular process. Any other discussion from council?
Is it possible to get a more detailed breakdown of the stuff in the bid, because I mean, this is still
Yeah, I
pretty
thought
generic.
it was basically it was a quote.
It's a quite, I'd just like to see the specifics, so, you
It
know,
talks
so it's
about all the different-
$40,000, I wanna know, you know, what do you?
It was actually 30-something thousand plus 6,600, I think, is the maintenance, whatever.
Yeah, I just wanna know the specific details.
Yeah, I thought it was included. I apologize. I thought it was included.
I looked up your email, and all I have is that same document there.
Yep.
So,
Since it's been an ongoing situation for at least a couple of years that I know of, and it is a priority in education, as far as I'm concerned. I would have liked to seen it done before other things had got done. And I just think it was put off, so that's why I'm not gonna vote for it.
anything else from council? So this time, I know it's going to be, from reading this situation right now, it's not going to be a unanimous vote, but we do need a motion one way or the other to move
I'll
forward.
make the motion to move forward with this.
Second.
So your motion is to move forward to fund it?
Well, vote on it.
You have to make a motion one way or the
Motion.
You
other.
have to make a motion either to accept or not to accept. Or
I'll
not.
make the motion not to accept it.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilor Bickford not to accept the request from the school department. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second from Councilor Mativier. Is there any discussion? All right, so all those in favor not to accept the bid from the school committee?
Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Five.
Okay.
And the next,
Opposed?
Just for clarification, it wasn't a bid. It was a request to use the funds.
I'm
I
sorry,
understand.
request to use the funds. And
So the noes were Council Garrison, the yeses were Council Garrison and Council Canal.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. So it's 5-2 to not approve.
And just one more thing, as I clarified, or as I mentioned before, one of the things that I've noticed with all the referendums and the guaranteed performance contracts is the legal fees are very extensive. And one of the things that I've been told is that over the years, school, whether it was the school or the town, they would actually add the legal fees and stuff into the bonds, which would mean that you would be paying interest on those legal fees over the course of 17 years. I don't exactly know what it would amount to, but one of the things that I was going to, in the future, request is that we pulled money that we just upgraded the phone system, take that money out, use the capital reserve fund to pay for the, use the capital reserve fund to pay for the phone systems, and I would transfer the money for the phone systems to pay for those legal fees. I'm not exactly sure what they are, what the total will be, but I just think it's for us to pay interest on legal fees over the course of 17 years. Seems a little ridiculous, so just for future consideration. The other thing is that the safety committee has pointed out that we do need the lights in front of the high school and the lights going down by the Rite Aid. I know Ryan, he did DOT did a study, and they need to put a left turn signal right there, especially with the construction that's going to be going on for the next five or 6 months. That's going to impact the traffic pattern. And the other thing is we talked about upgrading the equipment for the radios, the towers, and things. So that would be a perfect. That's actually what this fund is for those types of items. But again, I will get that information to you.
Great, thank you. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-274, purchasing policy amendments.
In our packet, it's page 68. We have the purchasing policy amendments that were brought forward by Manager Barnes. Is there any discussion from council regarding this purchasing policy?
I think I got them from the last meeting. These are amendments that the council wanted, additional amendments.
Yep. And I looked through them and I didn't see anything that you missed.
Okay, thanks.
It's very well put together. I like the additions. This time I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept the purchasing policy amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? See none? All those in favor?
Pass 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-275, tax acquired property.
As I mentioned at the last meeting that I attended, we had several properties that we foreclosed on last year and also previous years. This week we are foreclosing on sewer taxes, sewer fees, and regular real estate taxes. My motion tonight, or my recommendation tonight, I should say, is to allow me to accept payment in full for those properties that we foreclosed on and to issue a quitclaim deed. I have about 4 or 5 of them that have paid everything in full. Some of them date back to 2008 and 2009. Once they realize that we own their property, they are coming up with funds. And I expect more, especially when we go through the tax season and they get the refunds. So I will, at the next meeting, I'm going to have a list. I'm going to have it broken down to what we just foreclosed on this week and what we had foreclosed on in the past. But I expect that we'll be getting some more payments in on these. So right now, because we own it, I need to get permission to accept the funds, and I also need permission to issue quitclaim deeds when I do accept the funds on all these tax-acquired properties.
Diane, for the general public, could you explain what the
What a quitclaim deed is, once we take possession of property, in order to get it back into the previous owner's names, we issue a quitclaim deed. And what that means is we say that we no longer have an interest in the property. So everything needs to be paid in full, including the current 2015 taxes. If this should go past April 1st of next year, then what I would do also is get the estimated taxes for the 2016 commitment as well, because we wouldn't want to issue a quitclaim deed and say we no longer own anything after April 1st. they no longer owe something, because they will, because taxes are assessed as of April 1st. But I'm hoping that the majority of them will be cleaned up by April 1st. There's probably going to be a few that are not, and then we'll have to figure out how we're going to deal with those. But I'll be coming back to you at the next meeting with a plan and another recommendation, and then we'll just keep going along till we get these cleaned up. It has been quite a shock to a lot of taxpayers, to be honest. There was some waivers that council did approve back in 2011, and those waivers never got recorded at the registry. But there hasn't been any waivers that have been approved by council since that date, so if we don't record them before we take possession, they're no good.
Are there any questions from council for Diane?
Nope.
All right, so at this time, I would open the floor for a motion, and the motion is specific, and it's in the recommendation sheet that Diane has provided, if someone wants to make that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Before we vote, I just want to thank Diane for her effort she's put into this. I've been in to see her a lot, and it's really taken a lot of time that she has. She does have some success stories with this so far, but it truly is a disaster that Diane's having to clean up. I'm glad I'm not in your seat, but I really appreciate your expertise with this and your persistency to make sure that this gets done right. All those in favor of the motion?
7-0, order passed.
Next item, please.
Order 2014-276, police cruiser equipment purchase.
Is that you, Diane, or are you
I'm
gonna?
gonna have
Chief?
Chief Brooks.
Okay.
I believe you have full package there. I know the numbers seem staggering, they were to me when I saw them, but also we are, when you change from, we've had Crown Vics for many years, and we were able to transfer equipment over year after year after year into those Vics. And hopefully Ford will maintain the same program with these utilities, so we can continue to do that after we get all this upfront equipment. I did solicit 5 vendors, received 3 responses. 2 responses were both installation and equipment, and 1 was just installation. All the numbers are before you. With that, I recommend that we go to MHQ in Mass, get this moving forward. Funding for this is 100% forfeiture. And the dollar amount, that 18,083, may go down a little bit, may go up a little bit. I can't be held to that exact number, because once they get into it, plus I'm gonna question them on what the vendor that gave us a $25,000 bid, he brought up the airbag issue. You probably read that. That hadn't been brought to my attention before, so I'm gonna bring that up with MHQ to see if that is something we have to address. So, but even if we do at MHQ's prices, it'll still be well under the, over $7,000 difference in the 2 bids. Well under. So that's on this piece. And after that, I just, you decide on that. Again, I just want to give you a heads up. And again, we've talked about this in the past. There are other items of equipment that will be needing to be put into these cars, the MDTs, the cruise video systems. I am going to be pursuing grants for those. I was on the phone today with Highway Safety, and they have a new grant program starting in January, so that's right around the corner. So I'll be pursuing cruiser video with them, and the company that we deal with our MDTs. I'm going to be going after a part of that Homeland Security supplemental grant when that's announced. It still hasn't been announced yet. I'm hoping I have the same luck with that I had in 2013. When I used that supplemental funding, and I purchased 3 MDTs in full. So I'm hoping we have the same history down the road, but again, there's no guarantees with the grant programs. And bottom line is, whatever the grant programs can't, then I'll be coming forward for okay to use forfeiture to get it done.
Are there any questions from council?
Are you, thinking about?
Retiring?
No. Personal cameras, I know that's not how they.
Oh, I've had that on the radar for quite some time. I've advised staff that that will be coming. Just this month, the company that we get our cruiser video systems from has developed a body cam that works with the cruiser video system, and that's the way we want to go. They started taking orders December 9th. Diane and I spoke on this just today, and I need to get my cruiser videos up to date first, make sure they're all the same unit, and then hopefully by that time, the second generation of these new cameras will be coming out 6 months later after they get all the bugs out of the first generation, and then we can be more serious looking at them then. But it is on the radar. Radar's on the radar too, by the way, so I would say that.
I guess we'll be seeing you a lot coming up. Any questions from council? I had one question. Once this is expended out of the forfeiture account, do you know how much will be left over in that account?
Enough to buy the other stuff.
Dollar amount?
The exact number, well, I don't have that on the printout anymore because you've changed it to a different,
Yeah, it's on the trial balance.
yeah, I don't get those
We can
printouts.
get that for you.
Could you email that to the full
The
council?
forfeiture is in the $50,000 range.
That will be left over after this?
No, that's where it is now.
All right. If, my recommendation here is for $18,083.20. Now, you mentioned the possible cost for something else you're gonna run into with this.
And again, it could go down, it could go up, because there may be some pieces that are on here which you don't need to do.
So,
Or the only question I have with them is what that other vendor brought up on that airbag piece. That was brand new to me, I wasn't familiar with it, so I do want to check on that.
would you recommend an increase in the recommendation for funding, so you don't have to come back?
We talked about getting permission from council, like authorization to spend up to $500 out of this fund on incidental things. From time to time, there's some small things that he would like to purchase, and we're not gonna wanna have to come back to council every time. So I think if you went ahead with this motion, this recommendation, and then also authorize us to expend an amount not to exceed $500 out of the forfeiture fund for other incidental equipment and needs, that might cover it in case it does go over. You think that would be enough, 500?
I'm looking at that other vendor's airbag pieces that they were talking about, and it's hard to tell. I'm gonna say let's work with that, and if it has to be different, we'll just come back. I
Right.
can't give a
But
good answer on that.
it'd be a good idea to have 500 for your other incidental things that you purchase.
Yeah. I think I know there's one thing on here that's on the list that's gonna come off, which is, because I already have them, so I mean, it's gonna move around, so $500 is probably okay.
And that $500 would be for going forward as well, for 3 months down the road. If you find
Yes.
something on Amazon, you wouldn't have to come to us, you could just buy.
Exactly.
I don't know if I got that limit on my credit card.
I think you do.
Oh, okay.
All right, are there any other discussion from council? So this time I'd entertain a motion.
Which one is that? HVAC?
Here, want my recommendation sheet?
I make a motion to accept vendor MHQ for a total of $18,883.20.
Did your motion include the authorization for up to $500?
Yes. it does.
Okay.
We'll make it easy.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-277, reallocation of CDBG housing funds for miscellaneous expense. Tracy?
I'll lose my voice. I think it was last month.
If you don't want to talk, you can sit down. It's very self-explanatory.
Okay, thank
Save
you.
your voice. In our packet on page 96, you have a memo from town manager, from Tracy, explaining their request for an additional $500 to be reallocated from CDBG Housing Loan Fund to cover miscellaneous expenses associated with the grant application. From my understanding, this is in addition to the $32,500 that they've requested and have already reallocated for miscellaneous expenses that will come in, such as advertisement, legal fees, whatever they're gonna encounter that was not included before in the $32,500. Because that $32,500 was for the design portion, the engineering company. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? I already shared my 2 cents with Diane, but I hope that this is the last request coming out of this account. I understand that we all have, we all make overlook something sometimes. It just would have been nice if this was all done at one time, for the sake of the public, not to think that we're gonna keep doing this, and have one final number, but, it is what it is. So we have a motion from Councilor Bickford, a second from Councilor Garrison, and no other discussion. All those in favor? The next item, please.
Order 2014-278, fire department turnout gear purchase.
You be taking that, Diane, or will?
No, I'll have Sean take care of it.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What you have in front of you is a PO for the amount of the $10,900 for this year's allocation for our turnout gear replacement, which has been a program that's been ongoing for the last about 12 years. Basically, it was in the pipeline before the policy changed, so we're trying to get permission in order to spend those funds.
This is for a total of 5 gear sets.
Correct. We've established that new NFPA standards have changed over the last 5 or 6 years. We put people in gear, we measure and put people in gear, basically a certain allocation amount every year.
Yep.
So, and this is just that part of that.
Are there any questions from council?
Next year, the new policy, we believe, will be, well,
Yes, sir.
you get my vote.
And it, to me, it's not that it's a new policy, it's that we're ensuring that policy
Correct.
is followed, that has always been on the books, it just has not always been enforced, as it is now. But I have full faith that, it will happen next time, it'll happen, every department head, will follow that purchasing policy, and it's not the first time that this type of situation has happened, because we're in a transition period, under new administration. But I just want, as a counselor, I wanna make sure that the purchasing policy is followed, if it's 1 penny or if it's $999,000. So that's all my 2 cents on it.
This is already money we had budgeted, right?
Correct, that is in the budget.
So I just want to make sure it's clear for everyone after what's already going on
That's
here.
already there.
And five sets represents what percent of turnout gear that you have now? Ballpark?
48 active members, so
5 sets is.
So we have a typical 6, depending on how much our membership is, we go typically 5 to 7 years full replacement.
Can't remember. So, annual agreement,
And this purchase puts them all in line with same color formatting. the
Same
formation.
spec, same color format, which is the same spec of what the whole department is at, so they're drawn to a certain spec, and that's what we're following.
Perfect.
Here.
Sounds good, gotta keep our volunteers safe.
Correct.
We're lucky to have the department we got. I would entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Counselor Bickford, a second from Counselor Garrison. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, sir. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-279, the letter to county commissioners.
I would, invite Diane to share us a few words if she has any. I did talk with, Counselor Lund earlier today, since he's been part of the budget advisory committee or budget committee for the county, this year, and he has a lot of insight on what's going on. Do you have anything to say?
No, just that, we got that letter from, the town manager of Sabatis, and, he asked us, told us that we could use the letter, and it was really done in a great format. I mean, he touched on a lot of things, so if the council does want to send a letter to the county commissioners, I would strongly urge them to use the letter we have put forth, because it does cover pretty much everything, what everybody's been discussing and all their concerns. But I think, like you said, Council Lunt's been going to the meetings, so he's got more insight than any of us right now.
All right, well, I think it's important for people to understand that the new charter that is just kind of taking effect now, that everyone voted on back a year ago, makes it pretty clear that the commissioners no longer have the authority to set their own pay, but they've decided that their lawyer found a way to reverse the reading of it and basically say approved means recommend, and I don't know how you could get to that from what they're saying, but that's his opinion. And actually, I just recently saw an email from this lawyer earlier where he's saying in his earlier opinion, he says it's unclear who has authority. And apparently he came up with a totally different and opposite opinion later on. So their own lawyer has two conflicting opinions on it. And I think it's outrageous that they think they can set their own pay and give themselves health insurance for a part-time, a couple hours a week kind of job. It would be like giving us health insurance for our job. It's not reasonable at all. And I think especially the fact that they just seem to think that they can set the rules however they wanted and ignore the written word of the charter is very discouraging to me, that we're supposed to be starting off on a new foot with a clean charter, and they're kind of ruining the nest before it's even been settled into. And I think all the towns in the county need to stand up and oppose this, because we're the ones who have to collect the tax monies for the county, and people are going to blame us if they get an increased tax bill because they decided to give themselves more nest eggs at the county level. The people don't see a tax bill from the county. They don't realize, okay, part of my tax bill that I pay to Lisbon goes to those people. So there's not a real, a lot of attention paid to that as much as there is to the, what goes on at the municipal level. So I think people need to be aware of that and see what's happening at that county level.
Great.
Any questions? If you have any questions or anything, I can follow up.
Any questions?
Does the current budget has it gone through the public hearing process,
Yes,
and is it
all
set in
gone through
stone?
Because the way it works is that they propose a budget, and then the county budget committee then, approves it, and then it goes back to them for final ratification, except on the issue of their compensation, which is, under the charter, supposed to be a separate item, and they decided to override it, even though I don't see they have the authority in the charter to do that at all.
So
I think they're just violating the charter.
So are those increases already built into that budget? Because we did get an estimate on what our new county tax is going to be.
I don't
It
know
has
what it will
gone
be or
up.
not, because they did it out of
Okay.
sequence and totally out of normal way of doing things.
You're also increasing from 3 commissioners to 7.
Right, so we have to pay health insurance for 7 commissioners now. So yes. And they're hiring a manager, so I mean, they used to be, they were full-time administrators in that sense, even though they weren't, professional people trained in it or anything, but they could argue that they were the administrators, and now they're just a policy board like us, so there's no real argument there that, they're doing a full-time job or anything, and there's 7 of them with the administrator, just like us, we're not doing the full-time job here, that's Diane's job.
Thank you for that update, Councilor Lunt. This time I would open the floor for a motion to move forward however we want to.
Make a motion to send the same letter that's bad, it says no, written to, for county commissioners.
I'll second that.
The motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I think we should also notify the Sun Journal that we're expressing our disdain for the councilors' actions, so that they're aware that we're also sending this letter. We don't have to the commissioners who decide to ignore it. That's probably what they'll do.
I saw that 10 out of 14 Androscoggin County municipalities have signed on to this type of protest, for lack of better terms. And tonight, the Lewiston City Council will be discussing it as well. So maybe we'll have 12 out of the 14 by the end of tonight. All right, a motion of a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-280, council working rules, and there is a motion to adopt the rules as tabled from the previous meeting, which is now on the floor for discussion.
Could you, do you have the note on who made the motion, who seconded it? I don't have it written down.
No, there's, since it's already there, we can just vote on it.
Great.
And amend it if you want.
Great, thank you very much. I wasn't sure about that part. So we are back to square one. As we were at the last council meeting, we decided to table it for further review. Does anyone have anything they want to change in the council working rules?
Yeah, didn't you want, the only thing that was changed was,
This is a new business.
on the new business?
We was gonna do any business, but
New business was any business?
Letter K.
right. Meaning if they wanted to bring something up that was on the agenda on that night, didn't have to be anything they wanted to talk about, even if it was on the agenda earlier.
That's, okay, I remember that conversation now. I noticed that the 2 Ks have already been corrected. Thank you, Twyla. Did you want me to do that? On here it's corrected.
And then,
Last meeting it wasn't, so.
it's no different from the last meeting, you probably just printed it from a different part of it.
Oh, it's G.
It's the
G.
G's then?
Yeah.
It should still be
G's.
there
G's.
then.
I guess all the positives.
I guess so. I better make an appointment. Okay. I would, I think we need to change that to make sure it's in sync. The only other thing that I was thinking about, and this was after I talked with the manager, we have audience participation, letter F, and then we have audience participation response, letter G. We don't really ever have a response that often, and we could always, if we wanted to just take one item off the agenda, we could take that item off and then respond when the actual item comes up for discussion. Because maybe the answer will be given during the sponsor's explanation.
You can always respond to council communications.
You can always, yep.
What is it you suggested?
Was to remove the first letter G,
Which is,
audience participation or audience response. And
Okay,
then we
audience
could
response.
respond during the
Okay.
actual item, or we could respond, as Council Bickford said, during council communications. It doesn't matter to me either way, but it's one of the things that the manager pointed out that made sense to me. How does council feel about that?
The only issue is I could see times when somebody has a specific question that, you could give them the answer if you have the information right there, rather than make them wait an hour and then they might not remember the question they asked. So there might be times, maybe you could just put it into the, in the working rules, somewhere, a description that, the chair may respond to audience participation items if.
Or
yes,
just change it to audience participation in response.
in response,
One item.
yeah.
Okay.
That way the chair has a
Yeah, that way you
ability
have
to
the
respond
option,
if
yeah,
he or she wants to.
if you need to respond, you can respond.
Wants to.
I know we don't always respond to every,
Yeah.
because sometimes we need to look, check into things first.
Just really it won't save any time, it's just kind of cleaning up the agenda.
Cleaning it up, yeah.
Not having so much stuff on here. Alright, so we have three
so is
changes.
that an amendment that you're making?
I would say K and L also, same way. If you're gonna change that, new business, just to whatever. response now too.
Yeah.
So we'll do.
Take that out and add it as one thing.
Okay.
So it's new business
It's just a cleanup.
and response, council response together?
Yep.
Any business,
Any, it was any
any
business.
business.
Clean business.
Okay.
Okay, what's the, I was gonna say, what's the difference between I and K then? Other and other business? Why, we got a lot of business going on apparently.
Well, other businesses typically, like tonight, we'll have the manager's report and the.
Right, that's not.
Ah,
It's
okay.
on order, but it's
Understood,
a
yeah.
discussion.
Audience.
Yep.
Audience business.
Okay. So we'll need a motion, for an amendment with these, changes, and then have to vote on the, motion that's already on the floor, correct, Twyla?
Yes, Councilor McTevier, seconded by Councilor Bickford, moved to adopt the new rules of the last meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much for looking that up. Open the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion
For the
to just,
amendment.
for the amendments.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And the amendment is to take K and L and make them one, any business and council response.
And I will also address the two Gs.
Yes, yeah, we'll take care of the typo.
Okay.
Take it together.
Then you did audience participation and response as
Yep.
one.
Yep.
That'll take care of the Gs.
Is that all good with you, Twyla?
We have it all.
All good, all right.
To vote now? Amendment?
And all those in favor of the amendment presented?
7-0, the main motion as amended.
All those in favor of the main motion?
7-0, order passed.
Thank you very much. And the next item, please.
Is order 2014-281, the capital improvement plan budget presentation, which has happened, now will be the vote.
So any, should I open the floor for a motion? You gonna be the motion?
I'll be the motion, I'll motion,
Give the motion.
accept the capital improvement plan budget presentation.
As presented?
As
Yeah,
presented.
as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? See none? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Order passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-282, MDOT municipal state agreement for Route 196 project.
But you were, Ryan.
Oh, I can do it.
That's what I call delegation.
That's right.
Better earn his paycheck somehow.
I didn't bring anything, so I thought Diane was gonna take care of it.
Do you want mine?
No, through the funding program through DOT, there's a couple different ways that road projects get funded and then completed. This funding program, the money for this project comes through the ATRC, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization that makes up Lewiston, Auburn, Lisbon, and little tiny pieces of that. This project is from Frost Hill Avenue, basically roughly the intersection of Frost Hill Avenue and 196, through the intersection of Capitol Avenue. It's a grind from white line to white line overlay, grind and overlay with, there is gonna be some ditch work or shoulder work that they'll do, some full depth excavation and replacement. The dollar amount, I believe, is right around 51,000 and change, I believe.
50,000.
Which is our matching funds based on a 15%, 10 or 15% amount, 10%. Basically, we need to sign a municipal agreement that will match, and we'll need to come up with a match as part of this upcoming budget year. The money is currently not funded. So Diane wanted to bring this here with everything, just like every other agreement, to get permission to sign up for, and then we commit to budgeting that match. The project will be advertised shortly, with construction to happen obviously this summer. DOT has taken a stance on have projects now where they don't specify a time frame, a specific start and stop date for a project. They specify a window, so that way they hope to get better pricing. With the contractor has the flexibility to do, fit the projects in with their schedules. So, but with the idea that it will be done for, I think, the end of October to cut off now. This project, and Rick Green alluded a little bit to it, since it goes through the Capitol Ave intersection, there's potentially some money being programmed for improvements to that Capitol Avenue intersection. I'm going to try to set a meeting with the school, DOT, and AvCog or ATFC, so we can kind of flush out the time frame of that project, because that project may come up to be funded as well, which means we'd have a match for that project as well, which would include improvements to the cabinet, as well as the signals to have left turn arrows, and whatnot. So our goal, I think, at this point is try to, trying to get them to focus on all these projects that kind of overlap at the same time is what we've been focusing on. And that's just a piece that isn't part of this. I just want you to be aware of it, that we may also have to budget some additional matching funds for intersection improvements, which could get, I think that project was right around $35,000 for the full intersection. Then again, being a local match.
Great, thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Is there any discussion from council?
I think the upgrade of the traffic light at Capitol Avenue is a long-needed improvement there. We've had a lot of trouble. Anyone coming from the falls trying to turn left at rush hour there and get across to Capitol Avenue probably sat there, sometimes do multiple light cycles trying to get through that. I think we really need left turn arrows there.
Any other discussion? Only thing I would mention, is I'm sure it's on your list, is when you do that meeting to incorporate public safety. I've seen a couple cars almost getting clipped there, so it'd be interesting to know the accident rate over there. All right, so this time I would entertain a motion.
Again, just to clarify, this is strictly for the paving
Yep.
project.
Yep.
And that paving very much needs to be done too. Anyone who's driven that slow, of course.
Needs to be done, and if we don't go to do this, we'll have to pay for it ourselves, so we might as well, we might as well capitalize on the opportunity here, and we pay 10%. I'd entertain a motion from council.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-283, the animal shelter contract.
I'll start off, and maybe Chief Brooks might want to say a few words. Chief Brooks, myself, and Jeff Cooper, the Animal Control Officer, we met with the Greater Androscoggin Humane Society and the Coastal Humane Society last Thursday to go over what they have to offer for animal shelter contracts and services and so forth. We did come out with our recommendation to go with Coastal Humane Society. They have a veterinarian on staff, and we can see some advantages to that for the type of business that we do with the Humane Society. And they have a whole host of different types of services that we feel would enhance, Lisbon. So our recommendation at this time would be to enter into a contract with Coastal Humane Society pending acceptable contract language from our town attorney or by our town attorney. And at this point, I'm not sure if it would be a yearly contract or a multi-year contract. I think we can go for more than an annual contract, but I think maybe the first one, we just do it for a year to see how things go with the Coastal and see if we're satisfied with them, and then after that, maybe look at a multi-year contract. I don't know, Chief Brooks, did you want to say anything? We do have money in the budget to do this.
Just brief, this is a ditto, and, but again, on a historical piece, Diane wasn't here, this did come up in the budget process, and you remember that discussion to change, so this was the plan, and this is the time, and we have the money to do it, and Coastal did look very good. with the operation we have now. The only town that Cooper, RACO provides services for that will not be going to coastal is Sabattis. They have a contract with Greater Androscoggin. The other 3 towns, if you approve this tonight, will all be going coastal.
Thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion, council.
I'll make the motion.
And your motion is to go with coastal?
Coastal.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Order passed 7-0.
The next item, please.
Order 2014-284, Personnel Policy Amendment, Section 9018, Leave of Absence.
Diane?
Yes, this is to amend section 90-118, leave of absence. The current language allows me, with the recommendation by the department head, to grant a leave of absence without pay or benefits not to exceed 90 days, 90 calendar days. And that's it, that's all it says. What I'd like to propose is to add, to strike the 90 calendar days and put 6 months beyond the exhaustion of any federal or state family and medical leave benefits. And the state family and medical leave benefits are 3 months, so this would be another 6 months on top of that, so it would be 9 months instead of 90 days. And in deciding whether to approve such leave, the town manager shall consider the necessity of the leave, the likelihood that the employee will be able to return to work within a reasonable time period, and the impact of the leave on the town. And the town manager may authorize extension of benefits during the leave period in extraordinary circumstances after consultation with the town council. Right now, it doesn't give me any leeway at all. It just says without pay or benefits, not to exceed 90 days. So this is more flexibility, and it will help the employees quite a lot.
Anything from council? Anything over here? I would entertain a motion.
Make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you, Diane. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-284A, the Justice Assistant Grant.
Chief Brooks.
Brooks, and this is an addition to our agenda. It just came in and it has to be approved before our next council meeting. Good evening again.
Yes. For the superintendent, this is an example of short notice. See by the email, they have the email. Okay. See by the email received here. This came in at 7:55 a.m. today. That's the notification I got on this, and the application that the Chief Board Sabattis is going to be completing the application for all of Androscoggin County other than Lewis and Auburn has to be in by this Friday. So that's a pretty quick turnaround. Checking back to see what happened here historically, this Burn Jag grant, the application was completed by the sheriff. He has been doing it for a number of years, and where he's retiring, apparently communications got lost someplace, or I don't know what happened. There was a communication snafu, was named GPS on this, and by the time they realized it, here we are today. So we just got this notification. With that, I put together this recommendation. I've had this, trying to figure out how else I was going to work with it, but this grant, the timing of it is perfect. My recommendation is that we use the grant for the rifle plate carriers. They have that documentation as well.
We sent it to them. I don't know if they were able to pick it up.
And what that will give us is the ability to put one of these carriers in each unit. Instead of issuing the individual ones to officers as we do the soft body armor, we'll just have one carrier in each unit, in the trunk of each unit. They are designed supposedly to be a one-size-fits-all. Haven't quite figured that out yet, but that's what the paperwork says, from medium to double XL. So the point is, it is rifle plates. That's protection we don't have now, and it fits this program. So I'm looking for your permission to forward this to Chief Warden Sabatis. He'll put it in the total county application for our part on the Lisbon piece.
Are there any questions from council? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This time I would entertain a motion from council.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Motion passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please.
Under other business, downtown TIF discussion.
That'd be you?
No, that's gonna be the agenda.
All right, we've been having conversations over the past couple of weeks with Diane and Tracy and 196 committee, following up on November. We talked about the 196 committee wanted to really ramp up efforts on establishing a downtown TIF, looking at creating sort of a revenue generating or revenue kind of establishing for improvements in the downtown to support public improvement, economic development activities. Tracy and I, a couple weeks ago, had a call with the state DECD person in charge of all things TIF, and got some interesting information. So just make sure everybody understands TIF, tax increment finance district. There's one right now. Kelly Park is the recent one, some of you probably were on the board for that. And that is a program where we establish a district. The downtown one is a little different. It's specialized better. It establishes a district in where, as improvements are made, the incremental increase in taxes is captured or kept local, rather than going to pay for county and all these other things. It's a little more complicated than that, as some of you know. But essentially, we're trying to reserve and maintain some funds locally to go back into the downtowns. So we just wanted to share a little bit what we found out with that conversation with the ECD. First off, we know that we will probably be looking at about the same area as is in the downtown plan for the downtown area for both the falls and for the village. The one district can actually have two separate areas. Probably, again, the same kind of area that we're looking at that we just did for the Slow and Blight designation. Again, all of this is kind of piggybacking on the same concept that we've identified our priority areas. We're really trying to be consistent in where our focus is. The most surprising information was when we talked with the woman at DECD. She said that if we were to submit in early 2015 a conditional application for downtown TIF, we can capture the increment for all of the new businesses that have been developed in the past couple of years. That includes Expert Volvo, which was got its first tax bill with the new development this year. It includes Fern's Auto Body. That building would also be captured this year, as well as Aroma Joe's, which is the newest one. If we don't meet the early 2015 deadline, we won't get to capture the increased value for Expert Volvo or Fern's. We would still capture things, but the urgency of this, which makes a lot of work in a short time frame, is the difference of a tax bill that goes from like $600 or $700 annually to $3,000 to $6,000, and that's the increment that gets captured. But only if we don't meet this deadline for a conditional, which is kind of like the first go through as we understand it. You have to have a fairly significant application, but so we know that's a short time frame. We're not sure we can make it. It's a February 27th deadline, and that's a lot considering we have a lot on our plate. We want to share the information and kind of proceed with caution. We're not sure it's feasible. We may continue fact finding and come back next month and say we just can't pull this off. It's not enough time. We'd love to be able to do it because it fits so well with all of this. I think we're really not that far off from coming up with a good program of what kind of things, how we want to structure the downtown TIF. We can structure it to include, they call it an omnibus TIF, where you can include not only to fund public improvements, the ability to do the credit enhancement, which a lot of developers and developments will look to. So if we include Warrenville Mill and Knight Celotex in the TIF district, that gives the town the ability to go ahead and set up those with those agreements with the entities without having to go every time to approve a TIF to the ECD. It's all inclusive, so it becomes a very powerful tool. It's not without its complications. We need to hire somebody to come on board and make sure we understand the ins and outs, the tax implications. Tracy and I are getting as much as we can, but it is, the ECD won't come out and say directly that they recommend it, but indirectly, they recommend a TIF lawyer. And that was a red flag that came up, is we don't have anywhere budgeted for that. So one of our early things is, and we started talking with Diane and other folks, is that even gonna be possible? Because if we can't do that, if we can't find a way to bring on the legal help for it, we can do maybe 90% of the work, but at least 10 to 20% of it has to be somebody who knows the ins and outs, can review the application and help make sure that we're doing this right. So those, I think, are the primary concerns going through with this. Okay, and I guess at this point we're just checking in, because if we wanted to try to do this, it's a short time frame. We have to fit in a certain number of public meetings and keep things going at a pretty quick rate. Again, I'm not sure if we can pull it off, but the ability to capture some significant funds right off the bat this year in that TIF fund would be pretty enticing. It's worth looking into. We kind of want to hear your thoughts, and as we're looking to get more answers about, well, what is the projected revenues if we go forward in the February 27th, exactly what do we need to have in place, what are the costs for legal fees and other assistance to get it through. We're getting all that, but we want to kind of hear where you guys are at too, knowing what little we know.
Has any research been done on the estimated cost of a TIF lawyer?
We're waiting for a quote.
I've requested that information. I'm just waiting for a quote, and I also have somebody that contacted me that would like to make a donation towards the legal fees, but I need to find out what that is going to be first.
It
depends on how much we're talking. So I'm just waiting for.
We're trying to get creative without cost.
I'm just trying to get a ballpark.
Yeah, we have a lot of fact finding still to do, but the pressure is on if we want to do it. We could probably capture all of the. We didn't think all of these recent developments would be eligible at all. So it's kind of like this is increment. This is money that we lose, not just this year, but over the next 15 years. That's money that we lose out on in capturing this fund. So.
And I guess what we want to know is if you're interested in this. If you're not, if you just don't want to do it, then we won't worry about it. But if you are, if you think this is important, then we'll come back at the next meeting and we should have more information, what it's going to cost and so forth. I guess that's what we need to know is do you feel this is worthwhile and you want us to pursue this?
Yes, I think it's very valuable to capture some of that money for downtown improvements, because we're not going to be able to really budget a lot through the normal process, but I think a TIF would be a great way to get some funds for that.
Yeah, and there'll be, I think, the big part will be for the council as well as the public is providing good information on what a downtown district means and what are the eligible activities and the way that we can use it. And we really, it'll give us a lot of flexibility in how we structure the use of those funds. And it's also, it just really it will make the town competitive, quite frankly. It really will, especially with credit enhancement ability, the omnibus kind of status.
I don't see any objection from a counselor not to move forward with it. All I do ask is that when you come back to have as much information as possible so you don't have to keep coming back, get it done in one shot. And I think Councilor Burnell and Councilor Crafts are both new since we've done a TIF. My first year on, we did a TIF. So having more information will be better, so we can fully understand what we're getting ourselves into, and try to answer some questions.
Yep, and maybe a question too to work out with Dan is, how much is done within the council setting and how much is setting up a special meeting just to talk about the TIF? I know we have to do a certain public process. At some point, it makes sense to have a meeting just to discuss it with council and everybody versus taking up council agenda time, just to give it its space, but I can bring it with you all.
You said this is due when, February?
February 27th.
So you've got about 70 days?
This is kind of shooting ourselves in the foot almost. It's, we're looking at our CDBG application, the letter of intent is the end of January. So we're like glad she gave us that information, but also not so glad.
So what do you?
It'd be great if we could capture that.
It would be great if we could do it, but
Because who knows
that's why
how
I'm
much
saying,
could have been built down there.
we may get a few more weeks into this and just say,
If
we
you can't
can't
do
pull
it,
it up,
right,
we
yeah.
really just can't, we don't have enough time, it's gonna be too rushed. But if we don't, it would be ridiculous not
Give it
to
the old
try,
college, try it first.
at this point, even though
So
we.
why don't you go back,
Yeah.
or why don't you go back, Diane, and get this information. Next council meeting, we'll have an item on the agenda to decide if we're gonna go forward or not. At the same time, we can decide if we're gonna go forward, how we'll proceed with meetings, how we wanna do that, and we'll have that streamlined, and we'll put a calendar together.
Okay,
All right?
sounds good,
Thank you.
thank you guys.
And the next item, please.
Is the finance director's report. We did that earlier, so let's move on to the town manager's report.
I just have a couple of items. One is to follow up with Roger's request about the side-by-side four-wheeler to take people along the trail. So I checked with the insurance company as far as insuring the vehicle, that's no problem, but it is a problem if we're transporting people on the four-wheeler. They will exclude that from our coverage because of the exposure. They find that as a huge risk, and they will not cover us. So if we were to pursue this and do it and somebody should get hurt, then we're gonna have to self-fund the claim, and that could be really catastrophic for us. That's not something we should be doing. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I touched all bases for you.
What I will do, I get it going, I will go and solve it.
Yeah, unless, yeah.
Council Paskey told me of one option, but that's kind of, that option's gotta get together before I go any
Okay. And the other thing is Christmas Eve closing. We would like to close the town office and library at 3 in the afternoon. Typically, we're open until 6. And Public Works, which would include the Public Works Department, sewer, and landfill at noon, because they typically close at 3 for the holiday, if that's okay with you. Any objection
They typically close at 3, but you wanna close them at
there? Noon.
Okay. I don't care. Take care of the employees. Any objection to that request? Right? Let do it, Diane?
That's it?
And the next item, please.
Is audience participation for new items.
I might open the floor for audience participation, new items, anything someone wants to bring forward. Seeing none. Next item, please.
We have no council response, no appointments. Council communications is next.
I'll start over with Councilor Garrison. All set? Councilor Lunt?
Well, if anyone has any more questions about the situation with the county budget, I think they should have checked the back issues of the Sun Journal. There's been a lot of good stories going on there that give a lot of the context for that. And give me a call if you have any questions.
Great, thank you. Councilor Mativier? Good. Councilor Bickford?
Oh, I'm good.
Councilor Crafts? Councilor Burnell? All set. I have two things. I was able to attend last Thursday the business forum here at the town office that Ms. Hoover put on. There were 14 business owners in attendance, along with I forget her name, but a representative from the Department of Economic Community Development. And also Senator Mason was there to give us an update. So it was great to see business owners get together and see the after conversations of plans that they have for their business and to seek resource help. And then also, for anybody that's interested, on Thursday, December 18th, 5:30 to 7, here at the town office, The 196 Master Plan Committee would like to invite all property abutters and/or interested parties to attend a public workshop to discuss the design concepts and issues for the proposed Lisbon Falls Route 196 streetscape improvements. Also, Mandy Oliver, a representative from our engineering firm, will be here to support with that. That whole process is to prepare for the CDBG downtown grant that we'll be applying for that Amanda just mentioned. So if you are interested, I encourage you to come out and take part in that workshop. And no other communications? Next item, please.
Order 2014-285 to go into executive session for 1 MRSA, Section 4056A, personnel matters, town manager's evaluation.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And there will be action to follow the executive session. And all those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0. Let me turn the microphone off, or are you going in the other room?
We're gonna stay in here.
All right.
Went that way, I believe. Yeah, I threw it away. Big circular file. That's what I need. Can I requisition a document?
I don't know, it depends.
Nice nap.